and good day to everybody watching this podcast. I'm Gazal Raina, and on behalf of Milaap, I welcome you to join us for an interesting panel discussion with three guests whom I love talking to, love listening to, and whom I have the pleasure of sharing this online panel discussion with today. Milaap is a social support group that we started in 2019 with an intention to create a safe space for parents and families who experience parental alienation, a phenomena where one parent is willfully kept away, removed, or denied access from their children. Milaap also furthers the cause of co-parenting with a firm belief that every child needs the love and support of both their parents. Over the last 5 years, Milaap has grown to become a collective of parents, grandparents, children, experts around the world who come together to create change and advocate the need for shared parenting in divorced families. I started this group myself with my own experiences with alienation and as a service to provide people safety, growth, and aid through a collective forum. Today's conversation is part of a large number of talks that we have attempted with experts on topics ranging from legal aid, family and child counseling, self-healing, financial literacy, gender issues, all topics we felt can help members and the world at large. More than anything else in the world, children deserve safe spaces of love and nurturing from their families and the world at large. This is no longer a luxury, but as basic as water, food, in a world full of crisis. This three-part podcast series is our attempt to explore a facet of the lives of our children that remain unexplored or rather unexplained. Every year around Children's Day, Milaap attempts to create meaningful conversations for and about children around the world with a promise to create more awareness on how we can make their worlds a better and safer place. At Milaap, today we have geared up three amazing speakers to create an interesting set of conversations on topics with a focus on well-being of children when faced with rapidly changing family dynamics. In this series, we intend to cover various aspects of this topic with a focus on their well-being and which will address contemporary family structures, children in various settings like single-parent homes, adopted children, high-conflict families, joint family setups, single children of working parents, and others. And through the conversations with our panelists, we aim to bring together a diverse set of perspectives, expert opinions that will set forth ideas for change and help to throw light on the topic. I'm extremely happy, extremely proud to introduce our three panelists today. Professor Sunitha Mani, the Dean of the Emotional First Aid Academy, a true force in the mental health advocacy. She's also the founder of Emotional First Aid course, which is a beginner's mental health certification to be accredited by the State University of New York and now recognized by HSSC India. She's also a pioneer in the mental health education. She designed the Apollo Med Skills curriculum, and Professor Mani's dedication extends her work. She extends her work with trans people, showcasing her commitment to inclusivity and support. She's the recipient of the prestigious iconic Women Transforming Lives Award from the Women Economic Forum in 2022. Professor Mani's influence is felt worldwide. Her unique approach, merging psychology with medical humanities, philosophy, social cultural study of human behavior, equips us with the tools to conquer challenges around mental health narrative in India. She recently covered the issue of parental alienation in her series, The Emotional First Aid Show, Caught in Parental Wars. And we are very grateful to her for giving this time and her voice to this topic. Very warm welcome to you, Sunitha. I also have Dr. Vikram Srivastava, Managing Partner. Welcome. I also have Dr. Vikram Srivastava, Managing Partner, independent law firm. He's got 23 years of human rights law development experience with urban, rural, and scheduled area exposure within India. He has a strong working and theoretical grounding on human rights, child rights, and governance issues. He's been involved in various roles, including policy drafting, legal interventions, research, training, and advocacy, program strategy, program implementation, monitoring and evaluation, campaigns and communication, planning and advocacy. He's also been involved in research studies and evaluation of projects. He's a regular writer. He's got 2 books and several articles to his credit. Vikram has worked with Marg and Cry before founding Independent Thought, iThought, which is also available at www.ithought.in. It's a national human rights organization working towards equity, justice, and mutual respect. Milaap is very fortunate to have him as a mentor, and he is featured in many of our forums and discussions to share his views on shared parenting and custody matters. Dr. Vikram, very, very pleased, a warm welcome to you.
Thank you. Namaste to everyone. Yeah.
Namaste. And I also have the pleasure of welcoming Kashmira Jaiswal. She's the Vice Principal of Navrashna School, Baroda. She's an experienced education leader. She's held the position of Creative Director, Head Pedagogy and Innovations, an extremely efficient coordinator, Head of the English Department in the past, and has demonstrated a history of efficiently working with primary, secondary education industry. She is very skilled in teacher training, student skill development programs, leadership programs, soft skill training, personality development. She holds a mastery in communication skills, critical and creative thinking skills, theater, public speaking, editing, educational technology, and curriculum design. She has a master's degree in linguistics, focused in international education, leadership, and administration. And she was also awarded the ILEP Fellowship, having studied at the College of St. Rose, Albany, New York. Very warm welcome to you, Kashmira ma'am, and such a pleasure to have you join us here in Milaap in a different avatar.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone.
While we see a divorce or a separation as a decision and an experience between a couple or between 2 people, not much has been talked about and said about the children who form a very important part of the life of this couple. How do we protect children and their well-being when their families go through a high conflict divorce? Protecting children's well-being is a crucial issue, and it requires attention and action. In many of the events and the talks and the conversations and sessions we have done at Milaap, we've spoken about the repercussions on children when they do not have access to both parents, or when both parents are not able to amicably co-parent with each other. I think today's conversation is going to be a very pertinent one and dive deep into this topic. There's a lot of research, of course, that is available online, and I'm not going to quote too much because I have all of you as an expert here. How does this high conflict, harm children? Is it only physical? Is it only a separation of 2 parents now living in different homes? Is it just a social change that the child has to adjust to? There are, I think, dynamics which not many are aware of. There are repercussions that not many people are aware of, and we will address that in today's conversation with our 3 guests. Kashmira ma'am, I'll start with you again. Being in school, being very close to children, I think you're someone who probably interacts with thousands of children on a daily basis. I'm sure you're aware of the data on the rising number of divorces in India. It's no longer just a Western influence or a Western phenomena. Schools, I feel, are the second home for children. And they are also a great place of refuge for a lot of children who go through a very difficult experience when their parents choose to separate. I want to ask you, given all of these backgrounds, while the life of a couple is very private and it's a personal matter, yet how are schools playing a role in helping children when they go through something like this?
Schools play a lot of role, I must say, Ghazal, because a child is spending 6 to 7 hours in school, and be it the young child or the grown-up child, children need a lot of emotional and social scaffolding. They need a lot of scaffolding, which comes from their socialization with peers, with teachers, with other significant senior students, So there's a lot of socialization that happens in schools, and especially when we were in the last episode talking about the single child family, those children also tend to open up and learn a lot of sharing, caring, and different values when they are in school. So school plays a big role in the socialization, and there's a lot of counseling that happens. Like I said, we even call parents for counseling, and at times, if required, there is an intervention that one takes for, an outside counselor also is brought in, because our school counselors may not be equipped to do that. So if the parents do deem fit, one can arrange for them to go and meet, or so that is regarding the parental counseling. In regarding the children, if the children are disturbed, they always have a safe haven to come to. So there are buddy systems in our school. In our student council, we have two posts who are the student counselors. So you have the head boy, head girl, creative, event management head, and all those IT head. But we have two student counselor heads, and then they further have a team. And so these teams are like peer buddies, and they watch out for their particular segment, like primary school. And so we have those kind of scaffoldings also in schools, where if you're feeling down and out and you need to have a conversation, there is a room that is there with where they have circle time, there are sandpits, there are, your peer buddy can sit with you and all that. Those things also happen. And there was something that after we spoke, I started thinking, and an idea came to me which we could implement later, is that, one could have a particular day where one could have a lunch hour, where students like this who needed to connect. So once a week, they go and have lunch together. And then if they wish to discuss anything, they can discuss. So a lot of uh, buddy system, conversation with, opening up, all that happens in school.
Kashmira ma'am, I thank you for sharing, and it's really so amazing and encouraging to know that Navratna is doing so many things to help children, to support them, to make them feel heard, and that there is someone to go to, and it's a safe place for them. I wanted to ask you, when children are going through these circumstances, they often feel a lot of shame, they feel stigma, and they feel that my family is very different, and probably something's gone terribly wrong with my family, and that's why my parents have opted to do this. How can schools actually neutralize that and help children to understand that it is part of something that of life? So how do you do that? Because it's a sensitive matter, right? So people are not, probably children or parents will not always want to share and disclose that their families have gone through a separation.
But that happens on a very general basis, because they do have their life skills periods, And so such matters are also handled where the children are sensitized. The other larger group is also sensitized as a unit of a class or as a unit of a section. And through those activities, they watch small films, 5-minute films, where, we have a program. We brought it from Bangalore only. The Mentor magazine people, they had started. So they would have short films, and then one would have roundtable discussions, and then one would have children discussing it. So conversation is a big thing, when you open up, you get diverse perspectives. When you know where somebody is coming from, And if somebody is low and out, and where is the child coming from, there are children who extend friendships and who understand. So conversation is a big leveler, I must say. And so such circle times are very important, and life skills periods में circle time होते हैं. तो स्कूल में strategically ऐसे programs, we do have strategic programs like that or activities like that which would help children.
Thank you, Kashmira ma'am. I think that, the school is really revolutionizing. I think the way you're handling these sensitive matter and children's life, when especially it comes to the trauma and the difficult, painful sort of experiences they would go through, and help them to understand that it's okay. It's okay, and that you are not any different. So thank you so much for sharing that. Vikram, I think when it comes to high conflict divorces and families, the legal system and the courts are always bearing the brunt of a lot of anger as well. There is, of course, a lot of expectation from the courts for justice. There is a lot of expectation for fairness. Like they say, the famous line that we all say and we've all heard in the movies, that I'll see you in court, right? That's the ultimate pinnacle of justice that we have. And so it is for people who go through when they fight for their divorces. So there's lots being said about the child being the center of not wanting to get conflicted through what parents are going through when they actually are choosing to contest their case. How do you think the law is looking at putting the child in the center and ensuring that children don't get affected by this conflict that's happening in families?
See, children are never in center. So, and when it comes to the judicial systems also, I think most people have this, false idea about court procedures, that it's about holistically looking at justice. Court procedures look at facts, and even the judges are bound by the legislations to look at the facts being placed before them. So if, say, in a divorce case, the woman has filed a case of, say, 377, unnatural sex against the husband, rightly or wrongly, which is now the norm in the matrimonial cases. Female putting a criminal case against the husband is now a norm. And she does not have any idea what she's putting. Many times she might have been guided by certain people. Now, court will only look at those factuals which are being placed before them. The whole argument in the court will be on those different, as we say, facts and circumstances being placed before them on that particular case. And I think in the larger fight for either divorce or criminal charges being placed against each other, of demand for alimony, demand for somebody pushing for restitution of conjugal rights. So in these larger demand within the court, where court is bound to look at the factual being placed before them, I don't think child figures anywhere. So I think the fight, see, if the child would have been the center, many people compromise. If we say that many families are still intact only because both the party looks at the child, that the child will be suffering, and so they still, with all the problems, they still try to remain together. Then comes a point where they say, well, this is worse than being separated even for the child, and then they separate. So I think the whole idea of keeping the child at the center in the judicial process, in a matrimonial case, is only limited to when it comes to and that too in a very, very small number of cases where they are asked with whom you want to stay type of situation. It's very, very in a very, very limited case. So I think looking from a judicial perspective, keeping child as the reason or as the central point for adjudication, that's not true, because that's never, custody is the lower in the list in terms of what the demands are. And as I said, criminal charges, either asking for divorce or some other party delaying asking for restitution or conjugal right, where they know that it's not going to happen, then maintenance, then other aspects. So custody only comes later, very, very, very later part of the negotiation, if I can use that word. The other earlier negotiations, because our somebody is so hurt that the allegations are also intended to hurt the other person, be it image or otherwise. So if you ask me, if you put me some frame the question differently, I'll give you an additional reply. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for a very I would say realistic take on what people are facing, and you've rightly brought out a very important aspect that it isn't really about the child, because if it was really about the children, then people would understand that even subconsciously, when they don't live together, the feeling and the language and the communication that they have, or miscommunication that they have, is affecting their children to a great deal. So even when children have reconciled to the fact that their parents are not together anymore, the fact that there is a lot of acrimony which continues to simmer, continues to be the language of the parents, uh, is something which people don't realize is harming their children a lot. And I think who better than Sunitha, if you could talk about what really are the, not just in the immediate now, but the future repercussions of children constantly battling out their parents anger, resentment, which is, even though the cases have been closed and the separation ink has dried out, continues to be highly acrimonious between people who are now ex-couples but continue to be parents. So how would you say children really get impacted? Because I think a lot of parents are not self-aware, are not aware of the repercussions that it can bring on to children when they continuously are either being subconsciously alienated or poisoned against the other parent, or are constantly battling out, carrying messages or carrying the anger between two parents.
Thank you, Ghazal, for bringing forward, the norm and the reality of Indian families and the families across the world. I think every family is a story in itself. And I want to take this opportunity to reach out to all the parents out there, whether you're alienated parents or whether you are the amputated parents there. That it's very unfortunate what has happened in your life. But the question right now at hand is, what has happened. What about your child? You might have a physical custody of your child. You may not have a physical custody of your child, but then, the child has space for both the realities. And as mature adults, any person who's listening right now, you need to be cognizant of some things that can really impact a child who's especially gone through a high conflicting divorce phase of their own parents. Psychologically, if you look at it, from my experience, what I have noticed is, the damage really runs out on the child, which I completely agree with what Kashmira madam was mentioning about what she says and what their school is trying to do. Having said that, um, what we observe in people, one, parents get their children for counseling, but most of the time it is to ensure that, no matter what has happened, I want my child to be productive, I want that person to be focused, and then go and live their life fully. It's very rare that parents come and say, I don't know what is happening in my child at an emotional level, right? So you meet these children when they are 20 years, when they're 30 years, 35 years, and then they come and then, they say, my life is a little dysfunctional. And then as a therapist, you go back and then try to trace. So what I'm trying to say here is, these kind of incidences have some sort of a long-term emotional and psychological consequences, right? Now, this is not in terms of, timeline. It's not that, you're going through a crisis like this, so next 5 years or 10 years, you're going to suffer. No. What it means is your healing capacity. All of us psychologically, we have a immunity that helps us bring back ourselves together so that we are productive and functional in our society. Now, for most of these individuals, what happens is that healing process takes time. And it takes time because, there are three stark things that really stand out for these individuals. I'm using the word individuals because, when you look at it like a child going through all this, we tend to look at it from a very emotional lens. But I want parents to close your eyes and imagine your child who's right now 6 years or 12 years or probably even 17 years. I want you to close your eyes and imagine this child when, he or she is 25, 40. How would that child look like? One of the things that you would notice in these adults is they struggle to develop long-term relationships. And I think it's very unfortunate, isn't it? Because they do not believe that life can be certain. So, their motivation into performance and everything would be very lukewarm because I do not know today this is there, tomorrow this is not. So imagine somebody living with that bubble of reality that, there's nothing certain in life. Day in and day out, I listen to stories where people make this conclusion when they're summing up their life. Sunitha, that's how I know that nothing is permanent in life. The love was not permanent, the affection, the attachment was not permanent, so was the anger and all these things. So even in this company where I'm appreciated today, I know tomorrow, it's not going to be there, which means this person is stealing himself or herself from the beautiful ability to experience a moment. So that kind of a stolen reality, I think we should not be gifting our children, irrespective of what reality it is. I'm not saying that our lives should look like Johnson and Johnson advertisements, all beautiful and bows and rainbows. No, I know it is diapers and, it is raw, it is real. But then to be a little cognizant of, what you create after a very harsh incident goes a long way. The second part is, their self-esteem. These people, they somehow feel and believe that, unfortunate things happen around them. Now, it can be a good thing because they're very good at shock absorption in any kind of crisis. I mean, imagine this person as an employee, very good at, dealing with customers who are very angry and upset and all that. Imagine such a person at a responsible, position of being a police officer or a lawyer or a nurse or a doctor. They would be very good at keeping a poker face and going forward and getting to the whole grit of it. But when you look at their own personal psychological making, when you imagine them sitting in a counseling session, right, they have a self-esteem where they feel, what can I expect? I will be at the receiving end of bad luck. So imagine somewhere a psychological makeup where I've already written off my life, So, so are you creating people who are like thick skinned, or can we create people who can have some optimism, hope, and really believe that, there can be things that we can create in terms of hope, impact, and relationships? So we need to remember that everything that you're speaking in front of your child, whether it's directly to the child or to, your other relatives in the presence of the child, you should know you are throwing a stone slightly on your child's self-esteem. And don't look at it like a child. Imagine this person. It's a whole person there, right? It's a whole person 20 years later, 25 years later. And the last part, which is the saddest part, which is where, all my training and my expertise and all this kind of really fall off, is when you see these people with major trust issues, right? They just don't trust that something can last long. Do you know this basic belief system that, tomorrow is a good day controls your level of your sleep, level of your appetite. Everything is based on the core belief system that today sunset, later tomorrow when I wake up, it's another new 24 hours. So imagine creating a society where people have trust issues, right? So much so that if you give them a real compliment, they're looking at you and they're like, why are you giving me this compliment? Do you want something from me? I mean, just ask it. I'm pretty shameless. They say it as a joke and everything. But can you imagine stepping into that person, not the child, right? That person's shoes and look at life. That's a very narrow life, right? Human nervous system is capable of so many emotions and everything. We have to give rich life experiences to our children. So to every parent who's listening to this podcast, I want to remind you, whether you are having access to spending time with your child or not, whether you have custody to your child, then all the more you need to listen to this first before you give a piece of your information, even if it is your grief story, right? You need to remember that it's only your side of the story. So you might not perceive yourself like a villain, and it's very natural and human. But you need to ask yourself this piece of information, whether it's a narrative, an incident, or a decision, or some kind of a caution that you're building your child to. Ask yourself, is this going to make my child a holistic, emotionally mature person? No counselor, no therapist need to give you any education. You just need to hold a mirror to yourself and ask, how important is this information that, oh, your father or your mother did so and so and so and so day. And today when I look at you, you have developed those habits. There are so many things, so many memories that you can build with this child who is a whole person. So whenever you are tempted to share your life with your child, ask yourself, is this going to add value to my child's emotional terrain? Because at the end of the day, we all have only our minds where we live. We don't live in bungalows. We don't live in our corporate offices. We live right here. And this place here, it has to make sense. It's everybody's birthright. So, it doesn't, divorce is good, bad, whether it was profit, loss, has a right to comment on another person's life. But if you're a parent, you have a duty to the young adult that you're, bringing forward to the society. So next time when you are thinking of putting or whispering something into your child, ask yourself how important this information is. Why am I giving this to you? And I think that will be
Thank you, Sunitha. Thank you for, again, like Dr. Vikram and Kashmira ma'am said, bringing back the focus on the children. And I think that awareness is definitely lacking, because the number of cases, the number of stories and experiences of people in courts, out of courts, on social media, in schools, is really heartbreaking. And I hope that, and I do believe that this conversation, this advice, these perspectives from you will help people, will shake people up out of the current state of mind that they have, is that even though they choose not to be together in locked in matrimony, please don't be locked in acrimony, if I could call that. So with that, I really want to thank you for bringing to light a lot of aspects which are lesser known, lesser talked about, when, especially when it comes to high conflict divorces.